Okay, so my name is Lourdes Agapito. I am Professor of 3D Vision at the Department of Computer Science here at UCL. I'm also a Gen AI Hub investigator, and I work in the Creative AI and Multimodal Models Working Group. And I'm one of the co-leaders of this group. And I'm also co-founder of Synthesia, which is a company where we do it's generative AI for video generation. So I have had my own experience of starting up a company, the journey of being a co-founder. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from both Miguel and Mingtian. We just wanted to give a little bit of a background for those of you who are not from the Gen AI Hub. So we're a hub that has been it's partly funded by UKRI and EPSRC. We have 8 academic partners. Those partners are 3 London universities, Imperial, King's and UCL, the universities of Oxford and Cambridge, and then Cardiff, Manchester and Edinburgh. So we've kind of spread around the country, many different working groups, all focusing on AI, but for many different applications. So I'd like to introduce first José Miguel Hernandez Lobato. He's a full professor of machine learning at the University of Cambridge. He's also a Gen AI Hub investigator leading the Generative AI for Molecules working group, and he's the founder of Ångström AI. So the floor is yours, Jose Miguel. You're going to tell us all about your company and hopefully about your journey as a founder.
Great, thanks. So yeah, the company I am involved with is Ångström AI. And this is a startup that is focused on developing fast and accurate physics-based simulations for pharmaceutical companies. And it's a company that we started last year. And we have been developing quite some interesting tools and methods that I would like to talk about. We can move to the next slide. I would like to describe briefly the team. The company was co-founded by several collaborators, Javier and Lourdes. Javier was a PhD student in my group, Lourdes as well, and Gabor Chani, who is one of my colleagues. He's a professor of molecular simulation at Cambridge, and myself. And I think both Gabor and I have a very good complementary expertise. I work in machine learning and AI. Gabor is an expert in molecular simulation, and I think we were like a great team to join together. And we have some team member, Harry, who is a medicinal chemist, and he's providing a lot of expertise in the domain application of chemistry and pharma. We can move to the next slide. One of the things that the startup is focusing on quite a lot is on improving the trade-offs of methods to estimate properties of molecules. Estimating properties of molecules is key for pharmaceutical companies, and you have trade-offs between how fast these methods take to run and how accurate they are. And the gold standard will be here the wet lab experiment, which is obviously not a computational method, but is included for reference, which would be typically the most expensive thing to do, but obviously the most accurate one. But you have other alternatives that have better trade-offs. Like you can do simulations based on the equations of quantum mechanics. These are very expensive to perform. You have cheaper simulations that are based on physics, but rather poor approximations based on classic physics simulations. And you have on the other side docking methods, for example, that are much faster but less accurate, and other machine learning predictor methods. We can move to the next slide. ideally, what we want to do with Ångström AI, sorry, the previous one, that was another small slide before this one, yes. What we want to do with Ångström AI is to achieve a better trade-off where we have very accurate simulations comparable to the level of wet lab experiments, ideally, but much cheaper to do. And this is the techniques that I'm going to describe briefly today as well. We can move on to the next slide. So one of the key ingredients in the work that Ångström is doing is on machine learning models for predicting the energies of molecules. And these models, they can be extremely accurate. We are working a lot on MAZE, which is a type of graph neural network that came out of the research group of Gabor Chani, my co-founder. And MAZE is a specific graph neural network that has been able to predict the energy of molecules, the energy of configurations of atoms in 3D space with extreme accuracy and with a lot of transferability and generalizability. It's a graph neural network that many of the people attending the seminar may have heard about graph neural networks. But the difference is that MAZE is based on spherical harmonics, so it captures invariances to rotations and translations, which is what happens in molecules. It's based on tensor products, which means that it can capture very well the structure of spatial locations of atoms. And it also is able to capture many body interactions in the sense that normal graph neural networks, they only work with pairwise interactions between atoms, for example, or between nodes in a graph. And the key thing of MAZE is that it's able to capture higher order interactions efficiently using something similar to the kernel trick. Many people in machine learning may have heard about the kernel trick, that you can, for example, use a polynomial kernel and you can calculate a feature expansion efficiently. So MAZE does something similar. It calculates powers of sums of these interactions between atoms in space, and by doing that, it can capture very accurate descriptions of atoms in space. So this MAZE model has enabled really accurate simulations, and we have been pushing the boundaries of MAZE and creating very useful techniques. We can move on to the next slide. So some of the methods that we have developed in this startup that are already ready are based on estimating the properties of molecules, especially in terms of solubility. This will tell you whether some molecule is going to be happy to dissolve in water and to mix with water molecules. So you may have like a pill with a particular drug, and then this pill has to dissolve in water. And if it doesn't, then your drug is not going to work, obviously. So you want to know the solubility of your molecular structures. There is another thing that is important, that is lipophilicity. And this is related to how the molecules are going to dissolve in water, but also how likely they are going to go through, for example, cell membranes, how likely they are going to dissolve also through fat and lipids. And lipophilicity and solubility are extremely important in drug design. And we have techniques that are able to estimate these properties with high accuracy at low cost. The other methods that we are developing that are also related to the drug discovery process is about predicting the structure of crystals formed by drug molecules. This is also very important to know the final form that a particular molecular compound will take in practice. And you want to know the particular crystal structure that your drug will take, so that that's going to be also important to know if the molecule will dissolve in water or not. If it forms, for example, a crystal structure where the molecules are too tight to each other, they are not going to dissolve in water, and your drug won't be useful. And finally, long-term research area of the startup is about scaling these methods to very large settings. So regarding solubility, as I said, one of the key things is that we want to know if a drug molecule will be happy to mix with water molecules, and that's going to happen in the real world if the drug-like molecules will be mixed with water molecules. And we are able to predict with MAZE models at low computational cost with high accuracy the solubility properties of drug-like molecules. We can move on to the next slide. So for example, these are some experiments from recent work done by Harry, one of the team members in Ångström, and Gabor and others in his group as well, where we show that with these models that we are using internally at Ångström, we are able to estimate the hydration-free energy. This is how happy the drug-like molecules will be mixing with water molecules. We can estimate them within experimental error, which is really great. And we show in this plot here on the right how maize in blue has a lower error than other alternatives that are GAF and OpenFF, that are other models for energy of molecules that are less accurate. We can move on to the next slide. The other thing that we have been working on is to do similar calculations to estimate the lipophilicity of drug-like molecules. And the idea here is to estimate how happy a molecule is to be surrounded by water molecules, but also by fat-like molecules. And this is very important in drug design. And typically all pharmaceutical companies will want to screen their drug-like candidates to estimate these properties of molecules. We can move on to the next slide. And with our simulations, we are able to obtain a state-of-the-art accuracy to estimate these lipophilicity properties, and at a level that was not possible before with this type of models. And we are able to almost match. We are very close to the experimental values shown here in dark blue. And in green, we see the results that we are able to obtain with our methods. We can move on to the next slide. The other project that we have also extremely good results is on crystal structure prediction. The idea is that if you have a new drug-like molecule and you want to know what is the crystal structure that molecule will adopt in the real world, you typically have to do some calculations called the DFT. These are numerical methods to estimate the energy of the crystal structure configuration. These calculations are usually very expensive, and pharmaceutical companies spend quite a lot of computational budget doing this type of calculations regularly. They have to screen tons and tons of candidate molecules using these expensive methods. And with our maze models, we're actually able to obtain speedups that are up to 10,000 times faster than what you can do with DFT, obtaining a similar performance in metrics. Typically, drugs, the nice figure in the plot, it represents just a box, which is shown by the square, and this is repeated in a space, which is what you have in a crystal. It's just the same box repeated in all directions. And you want to estimate the energy of the configuration of molecules in this particular pattern. And what we can see in the next slide is that we obtain very accurate results. We can move on to the next slide. So this shows some performance of our methods on predicting these configurations of energies for crystal structures. And what we see is that there is some results from doing these expensive DFT calculations that are shown in blue. And ideally, you want to be close to the values that you obtain in blue. And what we see is that our methods are, in most cases, producing very, very close results to the blue. This is the energy configuration of different crystal structures. And we see that highlighted in blue the values of the values selected by the density functional theory method, the DFT method, in blue, and we see in red the method, the structure selected by our method, and they are all matching very, very similar values, which is really remarkable. So we can move on to the next slide, and I can wrap. Sorry, the slide 19, not the previous one, the next one. The slide 19. So just to wrap up a bit what we are doing at Ångström AI, we are enabling AI physics simulations using these maze models that are both fast and accurate. And our models, they deliver experimental level predictions for different properties of molecules, like hydration free energy, lipophilicity, and other metrics that match experimental level, which is something that was not possible before. We are able also to predict the energy configurations of different crystal structures at a similar accuracy as density functional theory methods that are extremely expensive. And we obtain a 10,000 speedups, which allows now to screen way more molecules at a lower cost or much faster. And the pipeline is production ready. We are also collaborating with several partners, evaluating these methods. And the bottom line is that these high accuracy physics-based simulations are now practical at high speeds given by machine learning methods. So yeah, that's all from my side about Ångström AI. And I will be happy to answer more questions later on during the discussion stage. Thanks.
That's great. Thank you, Jose Miguel. Yeah, the format that we'll follow is that now we have another researcher from our hub. This is Mingtian Zhang. He's a research fellow at the AI Center here at UCL, and he's the founder of Vectify AI. His postdoc is funded by the Gen AI Hub, and he works with the hub director, with David Barber, Professor David Barber. So welcome, Mingtian. You're going to tell us all about your company, Vectify AI.
Yeah, could you?
Here we have the slides. Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Mingtian. I'm from UCL. And so this is Vectify AI. The co-founders, first is me. I'm Mingtian from UCL. I'm doing like AI during my PhD and postdoc, especially on generative models. So I have another co-founder called Tang, who is from Oxford, and his PhD is working on a database, especially vector database. So we also have David Barber, who is the director of the hub, and Peter Hayes, who is also did a PhD in UCL, and he previously founded Human Loop, and now is part of the Anthropic. Yeah, so this is members, and this is our task, our goal, which is analyzing long documents with large language model, LLMs, which is a very hot topic. So actually, in a lot of domains, people have the task of analyzing super long documents. For example, like 200 pages or like even 1,000-page document. So this is a distribution of domains of the users in our platform who has the requirements of analyzing long documents. So we can find like people from financial background, they have requirements of analyzing financial reports. Also, legal domain, people try to understand the super long legal documents. This is about technical manuals. People in healthcare, right? They have this like clinical trials report, which are very long. And also in academia, people have very long textbook need to read or have a lot of like research papers, right? So our goal is to how to using the modern language model to analyzing super long documents. So this is a challenge of the current language model on analyzing super long documents. So the current language models has this like context limit. Okay, so context limit means like how many characters you can input into ChatGPT. Okay, this is a context window limit. So old language models have very small context limit. For example, GPT-3 has around like 2,000 tokens. And right now, modern language model can have like 1 million tokens, okay, which is much longer than before. Also, models like Llama 4 has like 10 million tokens, okay, which is already very big. You can already feed in books into this language model. However, although you can put in books into the current large language model, there is a phenomenon called context road phenomenon, which means when the input of the model become very long, its question answering ability also decrease. So the performance of the language model grows increasingly unreliable as the input length grows, okay? Which means the current language model still face a lot of challenge if you just upload the super long documents. So I will show you some example later. But this is a challenge we try to solve, right? So current language model couldn't analyze super long documents very well, and we try to solve the problem. So a classic method in the domain is called retrieval augmented generation. So the idea is instead of input the whole documents into LLM, you first retrieve the relevant information from the document, which should be much smaller than the full document, right? You first retrieve the relevant information, and then you put the relevant information with your query together and you send to ChatGPT, and you ask, okay, first understand the background information, relevant information, and then answer my question. So in that case, the context is much shorter than the full document, okay? So within the RAG framework, the most popular method is called the vector, is using a vector-based method, okay? So this method was actually invented also in UCL. So the process is you first split the documents into a lot of chunks, and then you use the AI models to convert all the chunks into vectors, into embeddings, and you store all the embeddings in a vector database, okay? And every time when a user raises a query, you also use the same model to convert the query into vectors. And you use that query vector to search the most semantically similar chunks in your vector database. And then you retrieve all the like semantic similar chunks with your query together and you send to ChatGPT and to get the answer. Okay, so this is the most popular pipeline people using right now. A lot of startups are working on this. A lot of researchers are working on that. So actually, in the beginning of our startup, we also work on like how to fine tune embedding models to improve the retrieval accuracy. However, we realize there is a big challenge, fundamental challenge of this type of method, because this retrieve information based on semantic similarity, right? But semantic similarity doesn't mean relevance. Especially you're working on like domain-specific area, like in finance, right? You know, every terminology is semantic similar, but they're not actually relevant to your question, right? So especially for like specific domain, like you have a lot of terminology, and they are all become semantic similar. So the accuracy of this method decrease if you're working more narrow areas, domains. Okay, so we found the fundamental limitations of this kind of method. So we took a step back, right? We think about, okay, how a human will solve the problem, how the human do retrieval, right? Imagine, let's say, give you a textbook and give you a query, right? And ask you to, okay, find out the most relevant information in the textbook for the query. So what you will do is like you first open the table of contents of that book, right? And you read the table of contents and you found out the most relevant sections about the query, and you go to that sections and you try to look for, okay, is there any information related to that queries? And you repeat this process, right? So we actually also created a method called page index, which we let human to mimic the human, which let the language model to mimic the human behavior to do retrieval. Okay, so this is a retrieval process of a page index. So it first generates a table of contents for each document, right? Because not all the documents, they have table of contents. And this table of contents is like optimized for language model to understand. It's not for human to read. Okay, so this is a LLM-friendly table of contents for each document. And then we use LLM to read the table of contents to select a section. Okay, and once you have a section, you retrieve relevant information from that section. And you ask yourself, is the information sufficient? If yes, you go to the question answering phase, right? You answer the question. If no, you go to the table of contents to do the search again. Okay, so this is like a human language of how the retrieval process work. So in a more computer science language, it's more like you generate a representation, a tree representation for a document, because table of contents, you can think about it, it's a tree, right? You first use a tree to represent long documents, and then you conduct a tree search over the tree to retrieve information. Okay, so sounds like similar to like AlphaGo, right? So we actually use a very similar technique to do retrieval, which is similar to AlphaGo. Yeah, so this is our method, page index. Okay. So we did some comparison on the finance benchmark on the retrieval accuracy between the vector-based model and the page index, which is vectorless model. Okay, so you can see the vector database only achieves 30% of accuracy, and the page index achieves over 98% of accuracy, which is the best in the market. So all the details can be found in the QR code here. And we also open sourced a version of page index, which attracted some attention over the last few months since we launched. If you're interested, you can check out the GitHub. Because it's very popular, so we also release a chat platform. So it's more like ChatGPT, but designed for analyzing long documents. Okay, so this is a chat.pageindex.ai, where you can upload long documents and you start to chat with that. The API and the MCP also available. So API is like you can it's a retrieval API, right? You can use that API to do retrieval. The MCP is like you can integrate this retrieval into your agent, LLM agent. Okay. So you can also check out this QR code for the chat platform. So I will give a demo later in the session. So here is a comparison of page index chat with ChatGPT 5.1, which released 2 weeks ago. Okay, on some files, some industry files that are more than 200 pages. Okay, they are actually business plan of UK energy companies. So you can check out the results here in the QR code. But the conclusion is like our accuracy is like 100% of accuracy. It's a perfect. So GPT 5.1 is like less than 50% of accuracy, and the GPT 5.1 thinking, okay, achieves 17% of accuracy. So this shows the current state of the art language model, although they have very long context, right? Which can, in theory, you can input like 200 pages, but the accuracy will decrease if your input document is very long. Okay, but our method, which is based on the read the table of contents method, tree search method, works better when you have long documents. But some people may argue, okay, is the tree search slower than the just to do inference over 200 pages? The answer is no. Actually, in our chat platform, our average generation time is much faster than the ChatGPT 5 instant. Okay, much faster than thinking as well. So the average time is like 23 seconds, which is good. So I will give a quick demo of our new chat platform. So let me, I guess I need to reshare the desktop. Yeah, so here I upload this book called Bayesian Reasoning and Machine Learning, which is a book by David Barber, the director of the AI Hub. And this book has like a 768 pages, right, which is very long documents. And you can ask something like, okay, so what is the, I don't know, it's a Bayesian reasoning, right? What is a variational inference? Maybe variational inference. And okay, so it will first think about, okay, what question, what knowledge I need to answer the question, and then it will look for the document structure, okay, which is a tree representation of the document. Yeah, so it looks like he's doing tree search right now, right? So he first look at the father node of the tree, and he think, okay, I need to go to further down, right? Look at the child node of the tree, and he did a three-layer search of the tree, and he finally get like the page 610 to 620 is actually the page where variational inference is located. And it will give you the answer. Okay, so what is variational inference? And all the answer, they have like page level reference. So which is much better than ChatGPT, because now you can know all the answers. They are not hallucinated from the language model. They are all from the book, right? You have the citations. So we are working on some function. For example, you can click the reference and it will open the corresponding PDF pages on the right-hand side. But this is just a demo. So if you're interested, go to chat.pageindex.ai. So it works much better than ChatGPT if you have long documents analysis task. Okay, I will share the original slides. Yeah, I guess I finished the slide. Yeah, so here is also the startup journey, which might be very interesting. So I did my master, PhD, and postdoc in UCL with David Barber, and my main research domain is on like the fundamentals, the probabilistic modeling, which is fundamentals of genetic models. And I work for image generation for a long time. And before I did this startup, I know nothing about language model and information retrieval. I know nothing about that. So why I choose to do a startup on language model and information retrieval, that was a mistake. Okay. And my co-founder was actually a PhD from Oxford. He was an expert in vector DB. But right now, so that's why initially we start to do vector DB, vector fine-tuning. But right now we also give up on vector based method. Okay, so we began Vectify by fine-tuning embedding models. However, we realized there's a fundamental limitations. So that's why we led us to invent the vectorless reason-based approach to retrieval. Okay, this is where we are, and yeah, and I guess I finished my presentation.